Hey guys, welcome to the Dads and Business Podcast. And on today's episode, we have Joe Baker. You kind of want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about you?
Hey, thanks for having me on today.
Not a problem, man.
So, a little about myself. I grew up in Scottsburg, Indiana. Lived in Salem, Indiana for a while, for about 10 years. 20 years prior law enforcement experience. Now gym owner. Happily engaged to my beautiful fiance. Dad, have a son. Also a grandpa. That's about it.
Awesome. Well, what do you do for work?
I'm the owner-operator of Alpha Combat Training Center located in Corden, Indiana.
Okay. And what's that for?
So what I did is after my law enforcement career, I took my boxing career, I took my MMA career, and then I took all the self-defense that I learned in law enforcement, all the DT training I learned in law enforcement, and just basically the road experience by investigating domestic violence incidents over a course of approximately 20 years and sexual assault cases. You know, those all add up.
Right.
And then after my career was done, I ended up sitting down and thinking about what can I do in my life now. So I had Alpha Combat open back in 2014.
Okay.
It was on a larger scale then, located in Scottsburg.
Yeah.
So after the career had ended, I had decided that I was going to take a totality of law enforcement career, my personal training experience, and my experience in boxing, kickboxing, MMA, and I implemented Alpha Combat to what it is now, which is it's geared towards a women's only self-defense academy, whatever you want to call it, a studio. It's a gym. It's a boxing gym. We do women's cardio boxing. We do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We do grappling, and we do self-defense. It's almost like a fight fitness program.
Yeah.
So you could basically walk into my gym and you can look at it where I want to be in shape or I want to learn self-defense moves. I want to train to be a boxer. I want to train to do kickboxing. It's kind of a variety of that, if it makes sense. So.
I gotcha. So people who are DV, right, domestic violence, do they come here to help get away from that, or do they, after the fact they're away, they're coming to like rebuild confidence? And
there's a large majority of the women who attend my gym have a past history of being involved in some kind of DV, sexual assault. A lot of women will bring their young teenage daughters into my gym, ranging 12, 13, 14 years old. They come and go. They want to learn because of some kind of boyfriend they might have had.
Right.
Creepy boyfriend. But by example, I got to do a seminar in February for probably about 30 or 40 women, I've been told. I get to some kind of shelter, some kind of unit over there in Corden, Indiana, where a lady reached out to me, and I'm going to be doing a self-defense seminar with them.
That's cool.
But yes, to answer your question, a lot of them do come in and do have they come in there out of brokenness.
Yeah.
They come in there out of no trust for men or a bad relationship with a man, with a boyfriend, and they have a lot of hurt and they have a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I obviously don't have the background that you have in as much as that goes, but I have a set of striking pads and a few other things. And so I work with her and try to teach her how to throw punches and get people off of them if they're on them, but nothing to a big scale. I have a family member who also went through a very violent time with an individual. And I think something like your program would have been good for her, but I don't know that. I think she's past it, at least mentally, and she's with a better dude now. So hopefully that continues to be that way.
I think what I see a lot, is, it's kind of rolled over here recently to, I'm not nothing certified. I don't think you need to be a psychologist to understand the way the world of dating and marriages are and why they're not surviving and why relationships are just not working. I think that if you take a a base of looking at social media and studying social media daily and looking and listening to podcasts and listening and watching YouTube videos and reading books and being discernful with what's going on around you, listening, having an open ear. If you listen closely out in public every day, there's someone out there hurting.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. I think we live in such a busy life that we tend to just put your head down and you just overlook a lot. And with that being said, it's just some girls do get away from it, but they have the residual effects from it and they carry it the rest of their life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And I've spoke on this a lot. And in the last 3 videos I made on Facebook was, it doesn't matter. You can't break a soul tie. It can be broken. It can, but it's hard.
Right.
It's very hard. And it's just women they look for a lot, not a lot of women, majority of women, by the studies that I have read, it's a pattern. It's a cycle. And if you're in a marriage for 10, 15, 20 years and you're getting the hell beat out of you, physically and mentally, the verbal abuse, and you're used to that toxicity for so long, it's hard to get out.
Yeah. It's
hard to break that pattern because that man or that woman has belittled you and cut you down to nothing mentally and physically abused you and made your worth to be nothing. And so you try to get out and date and you try to have people around you coach you and talk to you and say, no, you're not that person.
Right.
You are better than that. It's hard to convince them because it's mental. It really messes with them a lot.
Yeah.
And I've seen that so much. And just talking to women, that's why I could never understand in law enforcement why a woman always went back to their abuser. But me, myself, I got caught up into a very bad relationship at one time after my divorce. And so in that 1 year period, I experienced a lot.
Yeah.
And so now I can relate to it was a low scale, but I can kind of relate to what these women go through.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be, it obviously changes the way they outlook on life. And then whenever they get into relationships after that, if they want to go out with one of their friends or something and the new boyfriend's like, okay, that's fine, be careful or whatever, then they're like, wait a minute, you're not mad at me? You're not mad that I'm going to go do this? So
I have so many buddies, so many friends. My fiance has so many friends that they're all similar in nature and to what we're talking about. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people out there that get on Facebook, social media, and behind that camera, after they take that selfie, they're broken.
Mm-hmm.
They're hurting. And they put on that facade, they put on that image on Facebook to let the world know that they're happy. They appear to be happy. It just, when you go through a series of events, tragedy, when you have a lot of tragic events happen in your life, you just lose hope.
Right.
And it's hard to rebuild that confidence. It's almost like being a business owner and you lose your business 2 or 3 times, you file bankruptcy. Or life is lived in so many chapters and it doesn't matter. That's why I hate when I was in law enforcement, it's like I always hated when a parent or a friend or a coworker would say something like, I just wish he would get off dope.
Right.
It's just hurting him and his family and his kids. And it's like, you don't know what it's like to be addicted to heroin.
Right.
You don't know what it's like to be addicted to being an alcoholic or being, addicted to gambling or, obesity. There's all forms of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what would always upset me. It's like, you don't know one's battle. So until you've actually, it could be easy for you to get off alcohol. You could drink 1 beer and you could go 3 months without drinking a beer.
Right.
But there's one person out there that can't.
Right.
He's got to have 10 beers a day because he's an alcoholic. It's just the same thing with smoking weed. Some people can function very well with smoking marijuana. But then there's some people that have to get that better high. So it wears me thin to see people judge. And that's what we do as a people, is we're quick to judge, but then try to figure you out later. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. I have a family member who was addicted to drugs. He's doing well right now, and hopefully that continues. He's been doing well for 2 years now, and I can't how many times I hear it all the time. You know, why couldn't he just get clean, or why don't you just quit? Well, if it was that easy, he would, but it's not.
it's not. It's not
So,
easy at all. I've seen it over. There's many addicts out there that they relapse all the time.
mm-hmm.
It's just matter. You see, for me, I see males getting out of prison, and when they get out of prison, what happens is they go straight to the gym, and because they worked out in prison and it gave them something to do.
Right.
A majority of them is. That's why a lot of those guys get out and they're jacked, and they had a purpose. They had something that motivated them. They didn't have no distractions,
Right.
and that's why I'm saying it just. People get upset. It's just like, well, you did so good in prison, and look at you, you stayed clean, and look at you. But it's like they were in a controlled environment for the most part.
Right.
Like I have a buddy friend of mine. He was in prison for many years. He gets out. He goes to the gym. He's working out. He's clean. He's doing good. Been clean. But his downfall was he got into a relationship with a girl.
Yeah.
And that girl, literally, he found out that he could not really control himself and his character around women. He wanted to fall in love very quickly with a woman, and it failed time and time again. And he would talk to me about it, and I'm like, why are you wanting to fall in love on day 2?
Right.
Like a girl comes up and tells you got a nice shirt on, your hair looks good, you're wanting to marry her next week.
Right.
Like that is bizarre to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that affection. It's mothering issues. I was always told that you identify to your dad by structure, and then you identify with your mom to nurture. That's why guys dudes go to their mom, excuse me, and they want nurture. A woman will provide nurture. A man, you identify to your dad. It's like, I want to grow up being like my dad.
Right.
I want that structure. So you mimic what your dad's about, if that makes sense for the most part.
So let's touch base on your history, because I think that I think it'll help bring some things full circle. Mm-hmm. You had the opportunity to go down a very dark path, and you didn't. So let's kind of touch base on that a little bit. If you kind of want to give the highlights, kind of just explain about what happened, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. So kind of what brings me here today, and knowing you through social media.
Yep.
Approximately 20-year career in law enforcement came to an end back 3 years ago when I got arrested for possession of steroids.
It seems much longer than that.
Yeah, for me, no.
Right.
Seemed like yesterday. It was very tragic. I, of course, made the national news, and to me, I was a very successful officer and did a lot for the community, and I thought I did quite a bit. But, it was my decision, my mistake. Indiana State Police arrested me on the charges of conspiracy to deal, which never happened, but I did use steroids. I used testosterone. I used it quite often. Went to the doctor and got tests, and then I was using it myself on the side. And in the world of law enforcement, it's not an excuse. It's just, it is what it is. I had bought what steroids I used from other cops. And when you don't see it depends on city to city.
Right.
Some cities you can go to and you see some pretty slothy looking cops that don't look squared away. And then you go to bigger cities and you see police officers that are on steroids.
Right.
It's kind of a dark part of it's a part of the dark world of law enforcement. That people don't know the dark side of law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And it's not an excuse, but when you are a police officer, it's dark. Yeah. And that's all you see is doom and gloom and kill, steal, and destroy. And everything's negative for the most part, and you barely produce any good out of it. And but it caused me to get arrested. At the time I was married. I have a son. And I lost it all. I lost it all in a matter of 24 hours, 48 hours within that week. My career, my house, my marriage, relationship with friends and family. I let down the community. I went on Facebook and I made a public apology because I didn't want to have to go out and have to explain to everybody. I'm just like, it's all me. It happened. It is what it is. I can't do nothing about it now. Only thing I know how to do is just learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's been a long, dark 3 years trying to rebuild my life.
Right.
And it took a lot of isolation. Again, my world got flipped upside down. I ended up finding myself living with my brother on a couch. He took me in. I had very little money on me, and I had to learn to restructure my life. And, if you want, we can talk about what led to Alpha Combat, but
yeah.
I went through many days of depression. I had to lean on my faith, a lot of prayer. A lot of people, it doesn't matter to, prior to this podcast, we were talking, of course, and people don't never want to remember anything good you do.
No, absolutely not.
They do not. It doesn't matter if, you're a business owner and you ran a very successful business for, 20 years, 30 years, and then you get arrested for a DUI, by example.
Right.
Hypothetically. And then they're going to remember you for that.
Mm-hmm.
He's that guy that had to own, he owned the business, but he got arrested for a DUI.
Right.
Or no, he did this or he did that. And it's just like, it's the same boat. Well, I was told by many people, you were held to a higher standard. And, you had to enforce the law, but you was doing it yourself. Well, you're exactly right. But, so is judges that get arrested for DUI.
Right.
I know many judges and attorneys that get arrested for DUI.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing fingers to take away from what I did.
Right.
But, that's the thing that I had with law enforcement was you can go out west to California and you can smoke weed. You can go to New York and smoke weed freely. But you come to Indiana, it's illegal.
Right.
Smoking marijuana in and of itself has never done nothing to nobody.
Right.
I know that in law enforcement. I don't smoke weed. I did in college. That's it. Alcohol has been more victim to more people out here than
absolutely.
anything. Like, I wish people would took a journey with me in 20 years and see how many, accidents I investigated that was a result of drinking and driving.
Yeah.
And innocent people killed, or a domestic violence situation that was caused by two people going out and drinking that night.
Yeah.
Or a rape, a little girl getting raped because her dad or because of a guy was drunk or it was drug induced. So, for people to sit there and say, well, they wanted to pick me as the worst person in the world, but it's mainly the people who I arrested or their family and friends. And I'm like, man, I bled out for my community. And if they're going to judge me over testosterone, me using it because I was powerlifting, then so be it.
Right.
My family wrote me off as well.
Yeah.
I shamed them and they told me that. And, I don't even talk to them. I don't even talk to my own son.
Yeah.
We don't talk. And I'll keep it at that. But, I know that I raised him right. And I know I let him down. And I know that I let a lot of people down. But at the end of the day, the show must go on.
Absolutely.
It just has to go on. Either you're going to die, mentally, or you're going to square your shoulders and lift your chin up, and you're going to try to take a negative and turn it into a positive, which where I'm at today is what I did.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's, the main reason I just wanted to touch on it was just because everybody loves a good comeback story, right? And you're still building and you still got some things to take care of, I'm sure. But to know that you got in trouble with that and you could have very easily just turned to that life and just been, went down a dark hole, been a criminal the rest of your life, whatever. But you chose to not do that and go a different way. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people. It's just, I remember when state police arrested me, I remember the detective looked at me and this is how much they don't know about it. And steroid use. And he says, I'll never forget it. He says, I'm kind of worried about you. He goes, you're going to be going through some withdrawals when you go to jail. I said, from what? He said, from steroid use. I said, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's very apparent you don't even know nothing about it.
Right.
I'm like, you don't go through withdrawals. I'm like, it's just a steroid. It's no different than a cortisone shot. It's no different than you going to GNC and getting a pro hormone or whatever. I just used I injected it. That's all it was. And it wears me thin to where, I told, I'm not harping on state police or nothing, but my big thing was, why in the world are you so worried about me per se? And I get that. Like, you can't be doing that, I guess, whatever.
Right.
It was illegal. All right. So, I get it from my doctor, same stuff that I was getting on the street.
Right.
Okay. But what, I guess from my perspective on the outside looking in now, is you and I sit down on Sunday or Monday Night Football and we watch football. And we look at the NFL players that are extremely athletic. And they're going out the field at our age, 30, 20, 30, 40 years old. And you wonder, my goodness, these are really pro athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They take something.
Right.
I'm sorry. They do. I'm not naive. I've been a personal trainer. I've been in the game a long time. Those athletes take some kind of growth hormone, some kind of testosterone that's prescribed to them by the field doctors that's on the team.
Right.
You cannot do what LeBron James and them guys do in the NBA, out on a soccer field and whatever. When they think of steroids, you think of a bodybuilder on a magazine. No, there's all different forms. We've seen it.
Yep.
It's no different than CrossFitters. It's just like CrossFit wants to sell that really good, that front. And, if you do CrossFit, you're going to look like this. Well, I'm sorry. I look at the women on CrossFit.
Right.
And they take some kind of steroid.
Right.
I'm not dumb. You cannot tell me that they're not natty. There's something that is on board that them females and them athletes take that are CrossFitters.
Right.
But, they set up CrossFit gyms all over. And I know many CrossFitters that do CrossFit and they don't look even 50% to what one of these CrossFitters on TV look like.
Right.
So if that makes sense, putting that in perspective, that's kind of long and short of all that.
Yeah. And for me, I don't understand steroids 100%. Never used them, but it's just steroids. You're not hurting anybody else. As far as I know, outside of maybe some anger outburst, I don't know that steroids has really caused anybody to go hop in their vehicle and run somebody over. Mm-hmm. Or anything like that. So
there's cases that show, I think there was a wrestler, Chris Benoit, back in the day. He killed his family, WWE wrestler. I've heard of some cases like steroid rage and this and that. Do I believe in it? Yeah, I do. But knowing the history of those cases, like you have to understand when you run probably 3 or 4 or 5 different compounds at once, you're going to have some mental issues because it's hormones and it's messing with your hormones, it's messing with your state of mind. Me running testosterone for those years, it didn't do nothing to me. It didn't do nothing, just packed on muscle and made me recover quicker. That's really all thing side effect I had from it.
Yeah.
I didn't,
From going to the gym, it'd be nice to have something that helped you recover a little more whenever your diet's not where it needs to be.
I tell everybody today, when guys get older, just go get TRT from a doctor. That would probably save you hundreds of dollars a year from going to GNC or some supplement store and buying, some stuff that don't work. That goes down your stomach and hurts your stomach. Yeah. Just go get TRT, get your levels checked, have a doctor put you on TRT, and you're going to feel like $1 million. Yeah. And that's what I recommend to a lot of people this day and age.
So you got in all that trouble, and then you came out of that. What led you to starting a gym?
So, setting out my brother's house, I had no idea what I was going to do. Really in a state of depression. Basically living day to day. doing whatever. That's when I found myself out partying a lot, going to bars, drinking a lot. I had my little phase where I drank a lot and partied. And I just kind of went through the motion. And then I had a buddy call me and says, hey, you need to get into maintenance. That'd be a good trait for you, maybe. I've never turned a wrench a day in my life. I'm just going to be honest. I have not. It's just not me. You know, I tell everybody, I'm like, electrician needs a plumber needs a, you know, it's that's how life works. I'm not that guy. I don't have a toolbox. I've just lived my life in a gym and lived my life coaching people and live my life, you know, shooting a gun and being tactical, being just going out and being a police officer. Like, I don't know how to know how else to say it. That's all I knew.
Right.
I didn't even have time to even do stuff at my own house. So to lead up what I said, I ended up getting a job here in Seymour, Indiana, up at Silgan, and I got on as a maintenance apprentice. And I did that for a while. And I had a supervisor I became pretty good buddies with. And then during the course of that time, I started doing some videos. I had some people I was still personal training after I got arrested. And two or three females reached out and they're like, hey, can you train me? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I had this idea where I was like, well, I'm going to start doing some pad work, some mitt work with some of these women who I was training. And I was going to try to do some kickboxing, boxing moves. I was going to film it. I was going to put it on Facebook. I'll be honest with you. I did it for attention, just to see where it would go. And I post those videos and they're like, what's it? And then I had some people inquiring about it. And then for you know it, I was training 3 women. And for you know it, I was training 5. And then it went to 10. And then it went to 15. And then I was working all those people I was training while I was working at Silgan. We did 12-hour shifts. Well, my supervisor at the time, Brent, he says, man, I see these videos you're posting on Facebook. He says, man, he goes, didn't you own a gym back when? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you got all this training experience, man. He goes, you need to pursue that. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. You got to understand during that time, I spent a lot of time in prayer with my faith. And I was really, you know, everybody's got their own jam. Mine was, I spent a lot of time praying and asking God to order my footsteps, to redirect me, to restore my life. And during that time, on one particular night at a bar, I ran into a buddy and he did karaoke there. And he says, Joe, what are you doing? Nothing, you know, kind of just filling me out with my life. And he gets into this, man, maybe you should start women's self-defense up. I've seen some of them videos you post. He goes, I really think you could open a gym again. And I'm going, there's 2 people that's told me that in a very short time frame.
Right.
A light bulb went off. So literally, I was making not enough money, but I was making, like, living with my brother, you know, I didn't have no bills. So my car payment. And I told myself, I'm like, well, man, I could still make enough money training these people. Had about 15 people then. I said, that was bringing me in enough money. I could probably lived off that and probably build a clientele. That was my thinking. And literally, I walked in. I remember the intercom goes off one night around midnight at Silgan. Supervisor calls me in the office, and he's like, hey, because, man, I don't know. And it's my supervisor, Brent. He says, man, again, I'll never forget. It was like 11:58 at night. And he says, he goes, I don't know. He goes, I don't never encourage this with none of my employees. He says, man, you really need to pursue that. He goes, the second time I'm telling you. And he goes, you got a special calling, I think.
Right.
And he goes, you know you don't want to work here. I was like, yeah, you're right. I really don't. And I looked at him, and I handed him my keys to my toolbox, and I quit then and there. I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to do what, you know, I feel this is some kind of calling.
Mm-hmm.
You gave me confirmation. And I went at it. And I started promoting it, started getting my logo out there again. And I worked within my means.
Right.
And I built it up to there in Scottsburg location. I was personal training, doing self-defense. I got up to about 65 women.
Yeah. So do you like start out by just going and meeting them at a gym, or did you have a building?
No, it was word of mouth. And then before you knew it, I had women from Indianapolis, Greenwood, a lot of women from Seymour, Indiana, a lot of women from Louisville, from all over adjoining counties that were starting to reach out to me on Messenger and ask me about this self-defense training I was doing, that they had daughters and sons and the bullying and
Right.
all these incidents that they were telling me, all these stories. Well, I bought me a calendar book, schedule book at Walmart, and I just literally started writing and penciling everybody in, and they had a fee and I charged, and they paid me Venmo, and I got them scheduled, and I started training them a couple days a week.
That's cool.
So.
And you just like went to wherever to do that?
No, I'm sorry, I should back up. So I had a guy, I didn't have nowhere to train.
Right.
I was working out at Anytime Fitness, but I had a buddy of mine. There's a lodge building out in Scottsburg. They use it for rental, for like parties and stuff like that, weddings and whatever. And he says, man, I don't occupy this building none during the week. He said, except on the weekends. He says, he goes, you want to use this out here for anything? This is at the time I did those videos. So let me back up. So he had come on scene and asked me that I want to use this building for anything. I'm like, I don't have no use for it. It's a gymnasium.
Right.
But I took what money I had and I bought grappling mats. And I thought, well, I need these mats to train women and do self-defense with.
Right.
And so then I bought some heavy bags, and then I would store it out there in a room. And so on the weekends, and then once Monday hit, I drug it all out and had my setup.
Right.
So I started buying a little bit of equipment at a time.
Right.
As I went on during that course of time. But no, I used a lodge building. I paid him a fee per week and used that because I was at a comfortable position where I could pay him. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it worked out. It was, you look back now and I'm like, oh man, it was all blueprinted out,
Right.
So it all fell in place the way it should have. I believe. Yeah.
I agree. I think that we talked, so a couple weeks ago on my podcast, we talked about, I don't know if you read books, but I can't sit down and actually read a book. So simply because I fall asleep. So I use Audible and listen to them. And so I'm listening to a book now. It's called Power of Broke. But a couple weeks ago during one of my podcasts, we talked about whenever you don't have no money and you're starting a business, it forces you to become creative, right? And so that's a good idea of how that was creative and how it worked out for you. So it's nice to hear non-traditional ways of business, right? Because most people think, oh, you have a gym, so you went and bought a gym and then you've done all this, and that's not the way it worked. So I guess with all that being said, I'd like to hear that, you started from some creative way.
So really in my expertise in my field of, personal training, the gym, there's multiple gyms around everywhere.
Right.
And they're all the same in nature. And they all got gym equipment in there, and they all offer the same type of stuff, right?
Right.
You can go to Anytime Fitness. The difference between Anytime Fitness and maybe an ordinary gym up the road is they got 24/7 access.
Right.
You go to a YMCA, they got classes, and then they got gym equipment, and you pay a set fee per month, and you're accountable to come in there one day a week or all 30, 2 times a day. It doesn't matter.
Right.
With me, I knew that a lot of women, so I know in all my years in experience, what set me apart and where it's got me to where I am today was I had to be indifferent. And what I mean by that is I had to say to myself, what kind of gym can I open that is going to be indifferent? So I got on the web and I Googled, and I got on Instagram, and I got on all these social media apps, and I started typing in these gyms to try to pick up a little bit of information about each one. I said, well, what do they do? Well, look at the theme, look at the building, look at the way it's set up. And I would pick these gyms that were in different, like maybe out in California, in Florida. Nothing like what you might see here in Indiana.
Right.
So what a light bulb went off is, my years of boxing was the way I cut weight and the way I trimmed up the fastest of any other sport I've ever done in my life was boxing and kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beast of its own. And it takes a lot of work. And it will burn an exceptional large amount of calories quick once you learn how to train and do mitt work and heavy bag work. It exerts so much stamina. It takes so much stamina and strength and energy like no other. I ran cross country and track in high school and in college, and you think that's hard. Whatever. But when I started my boxing career, it was hard. It was real hard. And I got humbled and I got beat up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep the course and you get better and you keep learning and whatever. But what I learned was the weight cut, the trimming up, the toning up. And so then I started training these women. I noticed that weight was coming off them quick just by doing mitt work. And I told myself, I was like, women want to lose weight quick. They go in the gym and they work out and they do weights. And I see personal trainers that will train a woman in a gym and they can do weight training and whatnot, but it's a long journey. Mm-hmm. It's a long journey because women release estrogen. Men release testosterone.
Right.
So women don't understand. It's just like when you go to train a woman, you tell them, they're like, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big. I don't want to get, muscular. I'm like, no worries. Your body don't release that much testosterone or any at all.
Right.
I'm like, you release estrogen, so it's going to be harder to build muscle. And so, summing up what you're asking me was, I told myself, I'm going to open up a women's only gym because women are embarrassed, shy, intimidated to walk into a gym around a bunch of guys that's slinging around a bunch of weights.
Absolutely.
So I told myself, okay, if I make this a women's only gym, okay, now I'm going to add, it's going to be a cardio boxing women's only gym and self-defense. So it all started clicking together.
Right.
And that's where I thought to myself, I'm going to form a fight fitness program. So it's a fight fitness self-defense program. As we talked before, you can walk into my gym and you can look at it. I just want to get in shape. I want to cut calories. I don't want to get on no treadmill. I don't want to lift weights at a machine. I want to get in and I want to release some stress and I want to get in shape.
Right.
A lot of women who walk in my gym, they'll tell you, they're like, I just want to hit something. They're like, I want to hit some heavy bags. Why? It's because life has a way of humbling. And life has its way of just breaking somebody down. Mm-hmm. And so there's something about hitting something that releases a lot of stress. That's why now you can go to some of these bouncy house places, I guess is what they're called, like trampoline
parks and stuff.
Yes, and then they got a room where you can walk in and you can hit stuff.
Oh, like the destroying rooms.
Yeah.
Destruction room. I saw that.
Yeah. So, and to one person, they look at it like, why do they got that? Because people love to destroy stuff, especially when they're raging mad. That's why do you think people break furniture? Why in domestics it's like, I don't want to hit you, but I'm gonna bust this TV up.
Right.
Because they don't want to go to jail. It's like, well, I'm just gonna beat the hell out of everything in my house and put a hole through the wall and instead of your face.
Right.
And that's where that concept comes in.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So basically just creating an atmosphere to where it empowers women.
Yeah.
Where they can come in, where they don't have to be judged, where I can develop a program to where you don't have to put no work in. The program's already set up. You just walk in and you do the work and you leave.
Right.
And you don't get judged. I'm your coach. I do your diet. I do it all.
Yeah.
So
I know my wife hates going to the gym, and the reason is because she just doesn't feel comfortable working out with people around. So she goes because I go of an evening, some quality time we get to spend together, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
I believe when it comes to fitness, like I've told everybody who I personal train, you have to keep. So we do a lot of strength training at my gym. We do a lot of core training. So I know going back on my law enforcement career and doing a lot of DT training, I noticed that going to a lot of self-defense seminars myself, I noticed that it would be some kind of like martial arts, karate place, some kind of instructor who never had the field experience of being out there and knowing what domestic violence actually hands-on on scene was like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a big difference when you get out there in the field and you see a woman sitting down in the kitchen crying at a kitchen table and her kids in the living room crying.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's already escaped and he beat the hell out of her. Well, over a course of approximately 20 years, when you interview hundreds of women, their stories are all similar in nature on how they got battered.
Right.
Whether they was thrown against a wall, whether they was put on the ground, whether they was choked on the ground, their hands were bound up. You know, there's so many different scenarios that, you know, whether they was in a bed and they were watching TV and a phone goes off and it was a text message from a secret admirer.
Right.
And then it becomes heated and what was verbal becomes physical. And then you find a man on top of a woman choking her out in bed.
Right.
Till she goes unconscious. I mean, there's so many statements I heard. So I try to put these women in situations like such to where, like this seminar I'm getting ready to host, it will be just that.
Right.
Because if I don't train these women to build strength and get their core, I can teach them all the self-defense I want, but if I'm not strengthening them...
Right. If they can't implement it, it's useless.
It's useless. And that's what would make me mad. It's like, how in the world are you going to sit there and teach somebody self-defense, but then you turn around and you're not training them in strength training and getting them like in shape at the same time.
Right.
It has to be repetitive like anything else.
Yeah.
It's like you play basketball. You know, when you go to a gym, if you want your squat to get better, you can't be in a squat rack and just expect it to get better. You got to do all the accessory work it takes to get that squat better.
Right.
You have to do the glute work, the hamstring work. So it's no different than in combatives. It's like you want to learn self-defense. All right. Well, you also need to be in the gym. You need to be doing circuit training. You need to strengthen your core. You need to go out and run. You need to get your cardio up. You need to learn how to strike. You need to do it at least 2 times a week, 3 times a week. You know, you need to find balance. If you just stay in the gym and you're doing the same redundant routine exercises week in and week out, you're not going to get no growth. The key to growth is variation.
Tricking your muscles.
Just, you know, confusion. Muscle confusion is the key.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, okay, you've been in the gym for, 3 months. All right, get away from the gym a while. Go to a swimming pool. Get into a pool and go swim for 2 weeks. And then go back into the gym. You know, go out and go get a mountain bike. Go bike. Start biking for a week. Get away from the gym. Like, you have to find ways. Like me right now, I'm training for a fight. I'm going to 2 or 3 different gyms and training. I'm taking a little bit from what these guys are showing me because I've never had a kickboxing match.
Right.
So I'm learning all these new, these new ways of training with kickboxing. I've always boxed. So I'm humble. So I just try to take a little bit of piece of information from a lot of fighters, and I'm trying to make my own fighter, to become my own type of fighter.
Right.
So to get ready for a fight.
Yeah.
So
you asked me before we done this why I started the podcast, and that's basically the same reason. So I take everybody to interview and I take little pieces from their story and I'll implement it in my life, and then it changes it, and it just changes the trajectory. So that's why. I can contest to the cardio or just the exercise side of it. Whenever I started boxing when I was 13, I boxed with a gentleman whose name was Dwight, and he was a masonry guy out of North Vernon. I just seen he passed away yesterday or a couple days ago. And I didn't hurt whenever I would leave there after exercising or working out, like I do when I first start going to the gym, because it was different. And I noticed that everything seemed to tone up quicker when I did that boxing versus just going to the gym. And then I was listening to David Goggins, I think's his name. He used to be like 400 pounds, and he called it, what was the 100, 500. If he couldn't lift it 100 times, he wasn't doing it. And he has not had one surgery to remove any excess skin because he's made his body naturally repair itself.
You talking about the Navy SEAL?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, a lot of his videos, and you're right on point. It's all mental.
Yeah.
And I tell people, it's like you get you a membership. I tell these women all the time, I'm like, if you want to go get a membership at Anytime Fitness, go ahead. Self-motivate yourself. But if you're not self-motivated, it ain't going to work. It doesn't matter what time of day you go. Like, it's just not. It's either instilled, embedded in you, or it's not. And I think, so, maybe this might help some women out, me saying this. I know it has in some of the videos I posted. What I've experienced, what my fiance's experienced, what we've talked about, and I think this is really important. When you get into a relationship, a marriage, and if I'm sitting down at the dinner table with you, I just talked about this last night with some of my buddies. You're going to sell yourself to me on a date.
Right.
You're going to present your resume of life. It's all positive.
Right.
You're going to give me very little information on your negative traits in your character, right? And so when you go on these dates, you sell yourself in hopes that girl's going to buy your bullshit.
Right.
Okay. And vice versa. So with that being said, when I look at you and I go on that date with you, I think you're attractive.
Right.
And you think I'm attractive for who I am and what you've seen on social media.
Right.
You guys meet for the first time. You're like, well, he's really handsome and she's really cute. Right. So, but as you get more acquainted and you get starting to date and the cart starts moving in the relationship, you get comfortable. And then what happens is you start doing what? You start offering more information about your life, the more negative side of it.
Right.
I always tell my buddies this all the time. Do not offer nothing negative of your life until, particular chapters and seasons of that relationship. Then that's when you expose it.
Right.
But we get ahead of ourselves a lot and we're like, let me tell you about my ex-girlfriend.
Right.
Don't never bash an ex. Like, it's irrelevant to the date you're on.
Right.
But we do that because you want to sell yourself.
Right.
And so where I'm going with this in the aspect of fitness is this, and I told my fiance this. I encourage her to be beautiful. I encourage her to do whatever she needs to do to maintenance herself. I don't care how she dresses. I don't care any of that.
Right.
Because I want her to be empowered and self-confidence of herself. I believe that if you're in a relationship and she does it, she wants to go out, and if something happens in your relationship and the female wants to drift off and wants attention from other guys, and then she ends up having an affair or cheating on you, let her walk. Because there's nothing you can do to stop a human being from doing that. But what I see a lot in fitness is when I start training women and start training, I've got buddies all the time. They will blow my phone up. They're coming out of a bad relationship on social media. And they're like, I just need to hit mitts. I need to hit a bag. I want to get in shape. And then they will eat an excessive large amount of chicken and broccoli and rice. And they will do all this BS to try to get that dad bod back in shape.
Right.
Why do you think women go after men with dad bods, per se, the little trend on Facebook?
Right.
They do that because it's an insecurity issue thing for them. Because when they go after that guy that's got that dad bod, a good-looking woman, they look at that guy as, well, he's got a dad bod. He don't really care about what he looks like. He's got a good character about him.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about a bunch of women flocking on him. I'm good. you know.
Right.
But you get a man that's empowered and self-confidence and goes to the gym. You don't have to be prideful. Just have confidence in yourself or who you are.
Right.
Because a lot of guys out here, they just keep everything inside, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Us guys do that. And we don't want to get on social media, and we don't want to bash women. So when a lot of women come to me from the aspect, you know, from fitness aspect of it, they put their kids before their health.
Mm-hmm.
They put their kids before their man. And it doesn't matter what your belief is. I know what my belief is. My belief is God, husband, wife, then kids. That is biblical. And so that's where the breakdown happens. If you put your kids, which moms do out here, they will put their kids before their husband, and they will run those kids to 27 to 30 times a week, running on the soccer practice, basketball practice, baseball practice, going to tournaments. And the dad has to just come along.
Right.
When the intimacy is just left, they have left no time for them to.
Right.
Because they're running themselves, doing the family thing, thinking they're doing a good deed, when really, as you know, when you become older and you become 15, 16, 17 years old, the whole sports things usually trickles out, and then they get attracted to a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And before you know it, they're going off to college. And you know what? When they leave the nest, did that woman actually give her husband enough attention to keep him around? How many affairs did he potentially have behind her back during that marriage?
Right.
How many, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you're like, where do you get this from? Well, when you talk to a lot of people and you hear a lot of stories, this is how it's broke down.
Right.
And this is where I get all my information from. When you are a people person and you take your time to study people, this is the stuff you learn. I know I have. Especially out here dating before my fiance. It's horrible. You ask her, it's horrible.
I couldn't imagine dating right now.
It is horrible. It's awful.
Yeah.
And it is, I'm very blessed to have her and for her to come in my life. It's stability.
Right.
But my friends, a lot of my friends and family, she will tell you, my phone blows up daily with people wanting to advice on dating and whatever. So my thing is, you know, it's like, I love yourself for who you are. The new obesity is the new skinny out here.
Right.
That's why when you go to Gap, Old Navy, you see mannequins and they're obese females or a male and they got clothes on and they're advertising in a window.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right.
No.
Yes, you should love yourself for who you are. And yes, the beauty of you on the outside is what it is, but your health is bad.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can put on makeup and nice clothes and be happy and eat what you want, but you're going to lose 10, 15 years off your life maybe.
Right.
You know, so that's where I really get like, that's where a lot of this world, man, it's just like, it's a lot of backwards to it. It's like, when you're in a relationship, just don't let your health go.
Right.
I'm not saying kill yourself in the gym, but like, if you let yourself go and you get that comfort weight, that attraction is going to be lost between you and your partner.
Right.
I'm sorry, it just is. And I know that age is right there with it, and you can't help that. But my God, you sure in the world can like make effort to keep your body in check somewhat. Does that make sense?
I hear a lot of people say they don't have time, right? I don't have time to go to the gym. You absolutely do. You sat down for an hour of an evening and watched TV, didn't you? You could take that exact same time and go to the gym.
You will make it goes to relationships and it goes to life. If you want to, you will.
Absolutely. If it's important.
It's just like I tell women all the time, you know, and people. They can't understand how they fight for a relationship and that one person don't love them the way they love them.
Right.
And I always tell them, if they want to, they will.
Right.
I'm like, it's just plain simple. If they want to pick up that phone and text you, they will. Their actions speak way louder than their words. Same thing in the fitness industry. If you really want to get your body in shape, you're going to do everything you can to get your body in shape. If you were looking down the hallway and the doctor told me if you don't change your lifestyle, you're not going to live past a certain age, you better, I would want to believe that you would do anything in your power to try to get your health back for your wife, for your husband, or for your kids and grandchildren.
Yeah.
Like, you only got one body. You cannot abuse it and go out here being an alcoholic and think you're going to live this life and that you're going to live a longevity. You're just not. Or if you're going to smoke an excessive amount or, whatever,
I look at it like if you have a terminal illness, say cancer, right? And the doctor says, hey, you've got 2 years to live. Well, everything that you thought was important is no longer important. And you will want your fitness and your health to be there because you want to try to exceed that 2 years.
Right.
If I went to the doctor today and they said, you have cancer and you got 2 years to live, my kids are still young. I can promise you that with everything in my being, that from now until that happened, I would do everything in my power to make sure that I outlived that 2 years. Mm-hmm. It may not be possible, but I use that analogy to say, it is important and you do need to do it. And if you was ill in your health, you would do whatever it took to fix it.
I read a study, reading a lot, kind of like you. Usually something that happens in one's life, it originated out of something that happened tragically.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen that a lot in law enforcement to where a man became an alcoholic because of a divorce. A man, a dad resorted to alcohol or drugs because a loss of a kid in an accident. And same thing with a woman. And it's usually out of something tragic. So I usually, when I was a police officer, I would try to get ahead of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really try to figure out what made you do heroin? Why'd you pick up a needle and do heroin? Like, why'd you start doing meth? And they'd always tell me it was out of something it established from something tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, I was going through a rough spell. You remember Days of the New, the band from Charlestown, like an alternative band, and real popular, traveling Metallica? Travis Meeks was the lead singer.
Okay.
Days of the New is the name of the band. It was on MTV and all that back in the day.
I got you.
A lot of people don't know him though. When I was a police officer, I ran into him walking one night. I didn't know who it was. And I was out in the county and it was really late at night and a guy was kind of stumbling, staggered a little bit, walking.
Right.
I pull up and he's crying, he's upset. And I'm like, man, where you going? Because I just left a party. He goes, a lot of dope and drugs going on. And he says, I just need to make it to the next county over. I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, give me your ID. He gives me his ID. I look at the name. The name immediately was familiar to me, but I just could not pinpoint it.
Right.
And he started crying. He says, I'm embarrassed to tell you who I am. And I was like, I don't know who you are, man. And he tells me his name. And I was like, and then he told me who he was. And I'm like, really? And I'd heard on TV, he was on a rehab celebrity show at one time.
Okay.
I don't like exposing his name, but it's just a story to reference to that life changes quick, and he started crying and he was very thankful. I got him out of the rain and gave him a ride, but he told me a story about how he was just a nickel and dimer, just used a little bit of drugs here and there while they played the band. And then they made it popular and they started traveling with Metallica. And he says it would go from state to state. And he says it would be an excess large amount of dope and drugs of anything you wanted backstage. And he says when you had that caliber and that large amount of drugs in your face, all the members became highly addicted.
Right.
And he says that was the norm to them. And he says, I was a millionaire. I've lost everything.
Right.
So, it's just like, I believe that God has showed me through life. It's like, you think you got it bad and then something appears and it's like, no, you don't got it bad.
Right.
So I've always, as an individual, been in check with that. And yeah, I know I lost everything. I could have had a pity party, but I refused just to lay down on my sword, man, and die.
Right.
I thought, man, it can't end this way.
Right.
It can't. Like, I've got to take a negative and turn it into a positive somehow. That's just how I'm structured. And that's how I've always been, wired,
Yeah.
So
I heard a quote I don't know, it's been a couple years ago. Somebody was like, I feel like today I can't get through what I'm getting through or whatever it is, right? If you look back over your life, you felt like that before and you've made it 100% through those ones. So today won't be no big deal. Just keep moving.
that's the key is like you have a 100% recovery rate if you just keep moving
Absolutely.
forward. It's when you just give up and you quit.
Yeah.
And you listen to naysayers and you listen to people cutting you down. I believe God made me face shame.
Yeah.
As part of my consequence because I had to. And still to the day, people do.
Right.
And that's okay because I know who I am. I know that I paid my dues. And I know that, unless you had a front row ticket to my the events that's occurred in the last 3 years of my life, then you don't need to say nothing.
Right.
You wasn't there when I was, in jail. You wasn't there when I was crying multiple days at my brother's house alone on the floor, wailing and crying and praying out to God to restore my life. No one was there when I had to miss Christmases with my family and all the holidays, and no one was there when I was going out and getting drunk and drinking myself to where I was so drunk it just curbed the pain.
Right.
So I would go out and party on a Saturday and go to church on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew what? I had to keep seeking God. It was a struggle and I was going through a process, and I knew that I just had to keep moving and try to keep seeking God to restore my life and to where I am now.
Right.
It's just, I look back now and I talked to my fiance about it and I'm like, this is what the chain of events that's happened that's got me to where I am now.
Right.
It's all been blueprinted out.
Yeah.
But no one understands that. And that's why I always go back, and you don't know what's going on in the attic of someone's mind.
Right.
You just do not. And that's why so many suicides are silent.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who really mean it, because they build up so much stress and anxiety, and they don't. You have to be accountable to at least one person out here on this earth. You have to be.
Right.
You have to be. Somebody's got to hear your story. At least one person on this earth has to hear your testimony, your story.
Right.
They have to.
Yeah, and I think as a society, we have it's bad for men to talk about how they feel or their feelings or whatever, right? And man, I'd so much rather my friends call me and talk to me versus going down a different path. So
it's just your obedience to life. There's many people that's watching you that you don't even know of.
Mm-hmm.
And your obedience yourself could cause your children, your family, your friends to either succeed or fail.
Mm-hmm.
And with me and everything I did, yeah, it caused a tidal wave of heartache and hurt. And I've had many people. I've been out at I was over in Madison, in a sheriff that was in Scott County before. He walked right up to me and whispered in my ear, and he says that I humiliated and let down the law enforcement community, and called me all kinds of names. And all you can do is just take it.
Right.
And the only thing I kept saying in the beginning after I got arrested was, when people would badmouth me, was, I understand and I know. Because I really did. I understood what they were feeling, and I know.
Right.
I know. And that's the only thing I knew how to say. I'm like, I understand, I know. I understand, I know. Because I wasn't going to fight a battle that didn't have no scruples. I wasn't going to fight a battle that wasn't going to yield me anything in return.
Right.
Like, what would have been good to me to argue with somebody about what shoulda, coulda, woulda?
Right.
It's just like, I believe that's going to be the theme song in hell one day, is people's going to be, I wish I should have, could have, would have. And it's
Right.
just going to be too late. So you have to utilize off today, and that's where a lot of drug addicts is, when they will be clean for 6 months and they'll relapse. And then they will absolutely beat themselves up and they will use for 6 weeks straight. And I'm like, why? You made a mistake. Like you used one time out of the last 6 months.
Right.
Make today a new day and start all over.
Right.
And go.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. That's all you can do. It's just live in the day, but a lot of people don't. They're worried about tomorrow or what happened yesterday. And life is not designed to do that.
Right.
That's why we got a calendar that moves forward every year. Life is not, and so as you know, so many people live in the past. If I'd only did this and I only did that, you understand you cannot get back what happened 10 years ago.
Right.
Like, just stop.
You can't take it away.
I cannot get back what everything that happened to me.
Right.
And I don't, it's not that I don't care, but there's just nothing I can do about it. It's just like, it happened. I did it. I lost a lot and I made mistakes. I let down a lot of people. Now, all I can do is rebuild my name, rebuild my reputation, which I did.
Right.
And it took 3 long years to do it.
Right.
And to where I am now. But it's been a long road, you know?
Right.
So.
And see, for me, again, it's just steroids. I don't understand some of it. I don't understand why people would have turned their back the way they did. Or some people in the community would have said things like, you let them down, right? To me, it's just steroids. I understand it's illegal. I understand all of that. And maybe that's what it's about. But you wasn't doing heroin. You weren't doing anything crazy.
That's why I tell everybody, it's just, you know, woe me, send me to prison for 30 years. If I was doing heroin or meth, I'm like, but how can you sit there and judge me for doing testosterone when you watch Major League Baseball and they're all juiced out?
Right.
And you watch them hit home runs week in and week out. Like, how can you sit there and watch NBA and watch LeBron and go buy his apparel and his jerseys and support him when the guy probably has to take some kind of steroid to move and to replenish his body?
Right.
Like, I'm not dumb. Like, these guys don't hold that much muscle and can move and be that agile at them ages without them doctors prescribing them something.
Right.
So that's where I have a problem with it. I really do. And it's just like, you're going to judge me for that, but there's a lot of police officers out here that I know. It's like a lot of them turn their back on me and I'm going, I know so much about you.
Right.
Like, why?
Right. I wasn't the only one doing this.
I'm like, it's not even that. Like the guys, the other police officers that did steroids, but it's like, I know their personal life and I know that some of the stuff they did,
right,
illegal, and some of the stuff that they do to their family and friends, so illegal. And it's like, you put on a front and you put on a show, and I do respect law enforcement out here. I do. And I still do. I got many cop buddies. But this whole thing on TV with, the thin blue line and back to blue, there's many good officers out here, but there's many more that's very crooked. I just seen something on social media last night of a female officer, and she got fired for having sexual affairs with the whole department. I just heard that. So,
right,
you see it in the news every day, but it's just like, don't come at me so hard when you need to open your eyes to what's going on around. Like, come on now. Like, I don't think what I did was that crazy. Like,
right.
Come on. Like, I just don't.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who was a police officer for 4 or 5 years, and he finally quit. He's like, I can't take it. He's like, I won't tell where or how, but he's like, this is crooked. Like, I've seen a lot of bad stuff happen, and I'm not okay with being a part of it. So he got away with it, or he got away from it.
You can only take so much mentally.
Yeah.
You can. It just...
for me, if a police officer was using steroids and it helped him, right? Because if it was you that was the cop that I was standing next to, or if it was a dude who was 300 pounds and couldn't chase me, and I knew I could get away and he didn't have any way to ID me already, I'm going to run from him. I'm not running from you because you can chase me.
Right.
He's going to chase me
And collapse
30 feet and then he's going to be done and I'm going to make it. So
exactly.
I think if a police officer could do that and it helped and it benefited them, because what they do every day is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they could, I don't see the issue with it, but I understand it's illegal and that's why it's an issue. But just in general, I think if it could help them and help them do their job better and it makes sense.
I think what bothers me the most now, in conclusion here, talking about this, is so many cops I know, you know, they turn their back on me, but so many of them, a large majority of them, I just seen one Friday night at a Mexican restaurant doing it. They will drink their body weight in alcohol, get in a car and drive off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They will drink an excessive amount. I've known police officers that got arrested for domestic violence because of a result of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to sit there and frown at me for doing testosterone when it did nothing to nobody?
Right.
You know, it didn't affect nobody. It didn't hurt nobody. It hurt me if it's doing anything, you know, whatever. But it for that's where I have a problem.
Right.
With the whole thing with it is, you know, I think, but life moves so quickly, we overlook stuff like
Absolutely.
that. You know, so
obviously fitness is important and you've kind of expressed why already just because of your past and everything that you've done and helping people. What's coming up for your gym business? Do you have more gyms you're opening? How many do you have?
Yeah, we're excited. Lord willing, if everything pans out financially, the fiance and I, we're going to try to open up another Alpha Combat in Jeffersonville, maybe Clarksville area. That's the goal.
That'd be cool.
So I want to make the facility bigger, offer more, but it's just putting money to the table, making sure the finances are right to do it.
Right.
So we'll see in the next month or so here what's going on, and that's the goal. I would like to open up one or two more, probably just one more. I'd love to bring it to Seymour, Indiana, but you know, Louisville and Jeffersonville is expanding so rapidly down there. The marketing's great, so and there's nothing like that down there. So, and there's nothing like that up this way either, but
right. But it makes more sense there because there's more population.
Yeah, you got Louisville area and stuff. So that's the goal, is to put it down there somewhere, the next location. Just got to find a building and just tie it all in together.
Right. Yeah. At some point, I would like to do this again, but I'd like to have a third mic so that we could have Crystal on too, because I think that she could add some value to just that side of it from a woman's standpoint.
She's been my backbone. She's she picked me up in life at a very vulnerable time to where you know, God works in mysterious ways. You know, I go back to my faith, and I just coming out of a bad relationship, and she's seen it and recognized it. And Crystal is a very prestige, very successful woman, and at the time I had nothing to offer her.
Right.
And she's seen me at my, you know, she's seen me for who I was on social media, and we got acquainted, and you know, I opened up to her a lot about my life, and
right.
I didn't sugarcoat none of it, and you know, she just never gave up on me, like through the highs and lows and family affairs, and she knows it all. She knows everything about me, and I think she's expressed to me more what unconditional love is probably than I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I'm down, she's like always got something positive.
Right.
She's a very successful woman, and you know, so she's my backbone.
Yeah.
You know, she's made me who I am today. She's helped. She's been a big part
That's
of
awesome.
It. Yeah.
All right. So if there's one thing, or if there's two things that you could tell somebody, if there's two pieces of advice that you could give to anybody, what would it be?
Oh.
It can be about anything. It can be about life. It can be about business. It can be about fitness, DV, whatever you want. Crystal's heard the story. I've said it 2 or 3 times. I think it's
it needs to be said a lot based on me being educated about it. And she knows the story, but I had an old lady tell me here not long ago back in the summer, like an 80, 90-year-old lady.
Yeah.
She says, ask her, say, you have any advice for me? Give me some wisdom, at your age. She still has an iPhone at 90-some years old. Gets around fine.
Right.
And she says, love God, go to church and pray. Read your Bible. I figured that. I said, but outside of that, what would you recommend? And, my heart goes to, I love helping people. And I like to see somebody come from up out of a pit and succeed, because I've been there, and that's where my heart is because I know what it's like to be shamed on national TV and lose everything. So when I see people, when everybody around them's gave up on them, I don't want to, I want to just step in and be like, look, time out. Okay, you've been told this, you've been told that, but let me tell you my story.
Right.
Of redemption. And I'm one of those that if you've not been there, done that, wrote the book on it and experienced it, if you've never been through a divorce, don't talk to me about it.
Right.
I don't believe, do I take anything away from counselors and therapists? No, I don't.
Yeah.
Would I ever go to one? No, I would not. Because I know my belief is I don't seek counsel except by experience.
Right.
I think exposure to something equals experience. And if you get exposed to something, it's how do you come out of it? What did you take from that storm that you went through? I was told that every house is built in the path of a storm in life. It doesn't matter where you build your house on this earth, a storm is eventually going to hit it. It's just a matter of when. And this old lady told me, she says, Joe, she goes, and I told her who I was and I told her about what I do. She says, tell these young ladies this. And I thought, wow. She says, tell them don't go chasing cleaning carpets. I was like, what's that mean? She says, if you put your kids, and what I said earlier, everything before you and your significant other, your spouse, your husband, your wife, it will be neglected and you'll lose them. And I think it's the same thing like when me and Crystal, and I told her, I said, I love your two little kids. I said, but let's find balance with me and you. We're at that age to where, we're going in the latter part of our life and those kids can be raised fine. So I tell women today, it's like, don't neglect your body. Keep yourself self-care, mentally and physically, and don't go out here and run your kids ragged just to appease them and make them, okay, they want to do baseball. Okay, pick one sport.
Right.
Don't put your kids before you. I'm sorry. That's all. So the answer to your question is what she meant by don't be the housewife. Don't go chasing cleaning carpets. Don't have to go out here and run your kids ragged, and don't neglect your husband, because when they leave the nest, that husband's going to be staring at you going, you're going to be sitting across the living room each other silent. And I'm like, and it's true. I see it all the time, because when I train women, they're like, I'm going through a bad divorce. My husband left me. My husband cheated on me. And I hate when women get on social media, and I hate when they badmouth men. It's like, can we interview the man? Can I understand, and can you tell me, can the man tell me why he cheated?
Right.
Is it right? No. But I want to know what caused you to do it. There's a reason why. Right. Unless you're just an addict and that's all you do is have multiple affairs. Like, that's a whole different topic. But like, what made that dude do it? Right. What made that woman do it? Was she nagging? Was the woman nagging enough to where it pushed the man away? Did the man not feel no self-worth at home? Did he not get respected at home? If a man is disrespected in his own home, I I've seen women talk down to men bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do you think that man's going to do? Like, he's going to go find a woman who's going to actually show him respect.
Right.
Like, find a mutual common ground. You know what? Did you let your health go? Did you intentionally let yourself become, excuse my language, look like a bag of shit? Like,
Right.
did you seriously just let yourself go to where you eat your body weight every day and sit around, watch Netflix and watch doc series all day,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't worry about your physical health? And you were once, I hate it when a woman or a man's like shows me a picture back in the day,
Right.
and it's like, well, why did you let yourself go? Like, I'm in my 40s, but I mean, yeah, I look my age, but I don't. Like, I'm not, like some of my classmates I went to school with, they look like they're 60.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's just like, don't go chasing cleaning carpets. That's find balance in life. Make sure that you're accountable to yourself. Don't listen to people and negative people. If you listen to what somebody tells you, what you can't be, I learned that,
Right.
Then you're never going to accomplish nothing.
I love when people tell me I can't do something.
I love it too.
Look, man, I'm going to do that regardless now. I don't care what else happens.
Tell me.
I'm doing that.
Tell me I can't do something. And I think it was my big motivation was so many people are standing off on the sidelines waiting for you to fail.
Oh, absolutely.
They are waiting for you to look like a dumbass, really. Excuse my language, but they do. They want to see you be humiliated again. And I'm like, I'm not giving nobody that opportunity again. I was humiliated once. I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm going to build another empire, and how I'm going to do it, I don't know, but I'm going to put my faith in God, and I'm going to do it that way.
Yeah.
And that's all I've done. That's really, there's no secret remedy. It's just, we get too reliant on the resources of life, and my resource is God. And a lot of people, that's hard for them to fathom, but when you are at your lowest in life, you will. I promise you. And it's
there ain't nobody else you're asking for at that point. God, please help me.
Why do you think people lay on their deathbed?
Yeah.
And they're like, please pray for me. It's just life.
It is.
Life is lived in chapters. People come and go in life. And, let them walk.
Yeah.
Let them walk. If my buddies and stuff all the time, as I said before, they don't force somebody to love you. Don't force a relationship. I just talked to a buddy on the phone last week. He'd been in a marriage for 3 years, and he knows it's complacent. And I'm like, why do you want to beat a dead horse? Let them walk. You understand that if you go and you sit down, how many times have you heard on social media, heard people talk? Communication's key. Communication is key when the relationship is healthy.
Right.
When that relationship's not healthy and one of them's cashed out, by God, you better believe that it doesn't matter how much me and you sit across and talk from each other in a relationship all day. Well, let's just sit down and talk about it, babe. You understand that person that's cashed out, it goes in this ear and out that other.
Yep.
And they don't want nothing to hear what you're saying. They're probably thinking about when that significant other's going to message him. They're probably wondering about, what they're going to do financially to get an apartment. They're thinking about their game plan of exiting.
Right.
And that's what I told my buddy. I said, if she's cashed out, let her walk. Tell you want a divorce, trial and error. She was talking to her ex-husband of 20 years.
Right.
You cannot beat a soul tie. You can't. If that woman or man has got a soul tie with that ex, statistically, more than usual, they usually go back.
Yeah.
Women will always level up and never down. I just told her this and showed her a video on it. You ever think that's why you think an old man goes into Hooters and if they're loaded and they're rich, go to Hooters, right? Where do you see female waitresses? They're flocked to old men. What's old man got? Money. So if an old man that's rich walks in and he wants that young girl, a woman can level up and take him on even though he's ugly as hell and old.
Right.
But do you think a successful pharmacist, professor, female, judge is going to level down and date somebody from AutoZone, a male?
No.
No. That's how life works.
We want people on our levels. We want successful people in our lives if you're going to be successful. Take your group of people.
Where a lot of guys have a lot of hard time with women this day and age going, I know you're with him for money.
Right.
It's not looks. But the woman will justify it and say, what's not all about looks? The hell?
Right.
You're a liar. You're a liar. Like, quit lying.
Yep.
And that's what I've studied in the last 3 years of being a life coach, I think, is helping and studying relationships. Crystal and me studied a lot.
Yeah.
We do. We studied a whole lot, and we talk about a lot. And Crystal is on the same page with me with these type of subjects we're talking about. It's not like I've fed her into it, but it's like, what's your opinion? And every time we start talking about it, it's like, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a male and a female together and you talk about it, it's like, so that's how we end up with a lot of our drama, talking with a lot of our friends.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to call you out on your bullshit.
Right.
It's like, I see through it. And it's every day on my phone I happen to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But they know that I don't have all the answers, but I'm pretty, by experience, I want to think that I'm close,
Right.
to know the answer, or at least how it works.
Right.
So.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story and kind of talking about where you're at with some things. I hope that your other gym gets going. I think that's a huge thing. And I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from it. So
appreciate me coming on.
Not a problem, man.
Been a good experience.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening to Dads in Business Podcast this week. This week's episode was brought to you by Family Used Auto out of Seymour. You can give them a call, 812-271-2700. If you're looking to trade a car in, buy a car, if you need to refinance the one you currently have because it no longer fits within your budget, let's see if we can fix it for you. So until the next episode, guys, thanks.